say Happy Turkey Day. Why? Because that's what we're all thinking about. Food and American genocide. So I thought, who better to remind us of all this yummy food we're gonna eat than our good friend Pac-Man. But no, not the classic Pac-Man. I mean, what more can be said about that game? Instead, we're gonna look at every Pac-Man game on the Sega Genesis, because that's my thing. Or at least every one I could find. First up, Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures. Interesting title for an interesting game. As far as I know, it's the only one claiming to be a direct sequel of the original. That being said, I'll point this out right now. This is not a bad game, but it is not Pac-Man. It's kind of an adventure/puzzle game, and definitely aimed for a younger audience. You get a cheesy story, where every level you're on a quest to help out the family, usually to try and find something. The gameplay, well, you don't control Pac-Man, but rather a slingshot, and a voice that tells him where to look. The B button fires your regular slingshot, and holding down the C while tapping a direction makes Pac-Man look in the said direction, which could also change the way he walks. And A button fires your power pellets in this ultra cartoony world. Okay, moment of shock over. Take your jaw off the ground. Yes, seeing as this tears incredibly far from the original Pac-Man style, it's gotten itself quite a lot of negative feedback. But, I know this sounds crazy, but just forget that. Take a deep breath, and let's give this game a fair shot. The slingshot is used for puzzle solving, which includes clearing out ways, knocking something down, or just giving Pac-Man a little whack in the head to either knock him out of danger's way, or punish him for forgetting something important, or just to be a jerk. Looking around, aside from direction control, you can also alert Pac-Man to any obstacles, paths, or items that he may have missed. And yes, he has a tendency not to notice things. Then there's the power pellets. Primarily, these are used to get rid of ghosts that you can discover, but if positioned right, you can also use them to skip over an obstacle you were too clueless to find, or just bring his mood back up to regular. You can only carry 3, and they're found at the house. So, if you ran out, you'll have to walk all the way back to restock. Or the arcade, which will also boost his mood. I'll get more into that in a bit. This brings me to the happiness. The happier he is, the more likely he is to listen and think rationally. A sad Pac-Man doesn't want to do anything and will often refuse to attempt a puzzle. An angry Pac-Man will break stuff and ignore dangers. And a happy Pac-Man, well, isn't a jerk. His mood will go up from eating, finding items, to which he will do a nice happy dance, and washing off his face, to name a few. To make it go down is probably one of the more funny parts of the game. Shoot him for no reason. Instead of helping a little girl named Lucy, hit her in the face. Shoot other things. Make them take it out on Pac-Man, and of course, dying. Yes, this game is very cartoony, but it's actually charming. The graphics I find pretty appealing, very bright and colorful, and some of the deaths or puzzle failures are so crazy they're great. I actually enjoy this world, especially the arcade. Yes, wanted the original Pac-Man? There it is! Also, if you can collect all 3 cartridges, which I have never successfully done, don't judge me, then Pac-Man Jr. is also here. Seems like a nice little way to include the original game, but if you can get 10,000 points on the Pac-Man, then you can get a power pellet back without walking all the way back home, and Pac-Man becomes happier, so give them a little credit. That was implemented pretty nicely. Overall, I enjoy this game. I really do. It's a harmless kids game, not a classic by any means, but it has some decent humor. However, it is most definitely not a Pac-Man game and should not have been called as such. Being so different, I can understand all the hate it gets. No, you want Pac-Man 2? This is Pac-Man 2. Yes, the Genesis landed a port of Mrs. Pac-Man. Now, for a Pac-Man fan, this is what you wanted. It's not only like the original, but it also has a lot of settings that make the experience more fun. There's the Pac Boost, which can be turned on and off, always on, or by button command. Although it's a little weird if you select it like that. C is a hold and release, as in you're only boosting when you hold the button down, but A, if you tap it, it turns the always on feature on and off. Regardless of that odd choice, it still brings a lot of fun to the game, and some interesting challenges, as while you can go faster, it's not as easy to make turns, so a bit of timing to use it there. It plays just like Pac-Man. Eat a lot, avoid ghosts except when they're blue, only with more than one map, moving fruit, and cutscenes are cuter. But the best feature, aside from, the fun maze size difficulty settings, which can add a lot of interesting challenges, is the co-op. Yep, play co-op Pac-Man with a pal and you've got quite an event. far as Pac-Man on Genesis goes, these are the two I think are worth checking out. But just for curiosity's sake, let's take a look at the other two. Pac Mania! Imagine Pac-Man as a ball in an isometric view. But with much better graphics than the NES port, I guess. Well, I can kinda see how this would sound like a neat idea on paper, in an attempt to bring Pac-Man into the newer era. And boy, is there a tale to tell on how many ways that's been tried. But this title falls into the gray a bit. The biggest problem is the design. You're zoomed too far in, so you can't see most of what's happening. And the levels feel much bigger than they are, because there's no borders. Once you go to the end of the board, you'll come out the other side without any indication you've done so, which makes it very difficult to get a feel for where you've been and just how big the stage is. As a result, there's a chance you'll start wandering around aimlessly looking for one or two dots you've missed. Also, you can't see the ghosts unless they're right up close next to you. Because of that, you can easily accidentally get yourself cornered. Which is what I was going to say before I discovered you can jump. Okay, so that addresses the issue a little bit. But it's a fairly generous distance, which makes it too easy. So to fix that, later levels, there's enemies that can jump, which always jump perfectly in sync with you, so that's not even... Yeah, what else can you want me to say? I've heard there's power-ups, but I've never been able to find any, so I'm just gonna wrap this up. Pac Mania is just an overly complicated version of Pac-Man that doesn't have any of the original game's charm or addictive qualities or anything unique about it to make it worth checking out on its own. Some of the things that made the original fun were the simplistic qualities, and that everything could be planned out. This one is not really a bad game, but a gimmick, and we all know how those feel playing. One more. Pac-attack. This one, well, it's a puzzle game. Not much to say about it. You've got three game modes. The first is a standard high-score challenge game, where the rules are similar to Tetris. Those pipes or blocks or whatever they are, when they line up to form a line, that gets rid of said line. But the ghost can only be gotten rid of with a Pac-Man piece, which falls every once in a while. When you get one of those, Pac-Man travels in a direction he was facing until he can't turn anymore, and with every ghost you eat, this meter on the left goes up. When it's full, you get a fairy that clears a few lines of ghosts, and that's about it. Second mode has pieces already out and gives you a set number of drops to clear out all the ghosts for each stage. Third is just a multiplayer versus version of the first game. So, it's not bad, not great, just a puzzle game. Fun for what it is, but nowhere nearly as addictive as Tetris or Columns. But nothing critically wrong with it, just another gimmick. Welp, that's Pac-Man on Genesis. My final verdict, as far as Pac-Man goes, it's free on Google, so what's the point? Anyway, it's Thanksgiving. Happy holidays, thanks for watching, and here's to another 20 pounds.